listening to Cowboy Logic with Jason Forby, a message of grace and hope.
Is everybody good?
When Jason asked me to share my testimony, it made me think about what that word meant to me now, because so many things have changed since December. Before I tell you anything else, I do want you to hold on to that, is how fast it happened for me. So someone had once told me that, oh, how long has your journey been? Has it been years or, how long? And I was like, oh, not years. It's been months, and it reminds me a lot of the way it happens, in the Bible and scripture when someone comes face to face with Jesus and he heals them instantly. And, people with blind eyes are open in a breath. And a woman who bled for 12 years healed when she touched his, Renee? Seat. This is my thing. That's the kind of healing that I'm talking about today that happened with me, and that's what happened in my house with my family as well, so not just with me, but with them. When I was young, things happened to me that no child should ever have to endure. I grew up in fear and in abuse, and in so much insecurity, it became the water I swam in, and I didn't know there was any other way to breathe. I didn't know there was another way to live. So I prayed to God that the abuse that I was suffering would stop, and it didn't. So I started to develop really intense feelings of anger I couldn't explain, and anxiety that sat on my chest. So I don't know if you've ever had that feeling, but like when you're getting ready to go and do a public speaking event or go do a test or something, and you have that's just what I had my whole life. It sat there it didn't ever leave. It didn't go away. And I was so depressed that some mornings that I couldn't get out from under it. And it went as far as me turning that anger and that pain onto myself and self-harming to find some relief. And I was trapped. And most days I woke up fighting. I was fighting everyone, fighting just to survive until nightfall. But more than anything else, I was fighting God. I prayed that my life would change and that the hands that were hurting me would stop and that somebody somewhere would love me and mean it. I kept walking down paths of destruction until somewhere along the way, the light in me just went out. So when I say went out, I don't mean that figuratively. It literally went out. I was a shell, what people describe as a shell. I had nothing. And I was furious at God. I was furious at him for it. I blamed him. I decided that if anyone was ever going to pull me out of the wreckage, I kept waking up and it was going to have to be me, because clearly to me at that time, no one else was coming. So between the pain, the neglect, the self-harm, the people I ran with, outside influences, I became a self-proclaimed atheist, and I wasn't a quiet one. So I mocked God, I ridiculed people who believed in him, and I avoided Christians the way you'd avoid something contagious. I definitely wouldn't be standing here right now. That was my life, and it stayed my life for a really long time. As I got older, some things, started to fester in me, and I started aching for peace. I knew that I needed something. I couldn't continue what I was doing. So I went looking everywhere except for where that one place actually was. I tried counseling and self-help books, like stacks of them. Every time I saw something that said self-help or, workbook, I was grabbing it and going home and doing it and thinking, oh, I'm going to get better. And I gravitated towards things. I tried to align my chakras that I couldn't even pronounce. Every single one of them promised relief, and none of them delivered. And with every attempt and every failed attempt, I didn't get calmer. I got more angry because I was being promised peace. I was being promised something that wasn't happening for me. I became angrier at the search for that, angrier at myself, and angrier at whatever God I still half believed was watching me fail, because that's what I thought at that time was happening. So I added more prescription medications to the pile, trying to manage the anxiety and depression enough to function every day. I had panic attacks that would lay me in the emergency room. I'm not sure if you've ever seen a panic attack or heard of anyone that had one, but a lot of them are different. Mine, I wouldn't be able to swallow. It was the weirdest thing. My body just stopped functioning. I couldn't feel my skin. I didn't feel like I was alive. And I felt like my heart would just give out at any moment. And I thought that was the ceiling of my life. That was as high as it was ever going to go. And then when all of that was at its worst, right at the peak of it is when my son Maddox had a seizure out of nowhere. There was no warning. He had no history. It was just his body on the floor in front of me shaking and a diagnosis of epilepsy. It was the most terrifying thing I have ever experienced before or since. I never in my life felt so helpless for him, for me. But somewhere inside of that helplessness, something in me started to name it. So I didn't just see it as epilepsy, as a diagnosis on a chart. I saw it as something evil. So to me, it was true evil. It was something that it was bigger than me, bigger than medication, bigger than doctors. And I knew something had to step in to stop it. Well, I'm standing here today in church in front of all you. So something changed. Something happened. And I do want to take you kind of to where I feel like that exactly was. And that starts off with, most of you know the story of Saul before he became Apostle Paul. So in Acts 9, Saul wasn't a bystander of Christianity. He was its enemy. He hunted believers. He held the coats of men who stoned Stephen to death and approved of it. He was on the road to Damascus with letters in his hand, basically permission slips to drag followers of Jesus out of their homes in chains. That's who Saul was. And on that road, he met Jesus and blinded him. And Jesus said, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" Saul spent the next 3 days blind and unable to eat or drink until God sent someone to lay hands on him and the scales fell from his eyes. The church's greatest enemy became one of its greatest voices in a single encounter. I've been inside of that story lately. So we all have people we're strangely tied to, and we say, "Oh, we're just a brother from another mother." Paul's my guy. He's my guy right now. Because when Maddox had one of his worst seizures, I felt like I was standing exactly where Saul was on that road. I had mocked Jesus. I had taken him completely out of my life, the same way Saul set out to tear the church apart brick by brick. And in that moment, watching evil try to take my son's body apart in front of me, I knew it had to stop. It had to stop right then. Not eventually, but right now. So I put my hands on Maddox. And under my breath, I had no confidence, no faith. I called out to Jesus. And in that exact instant, Maddox stopped seizing and I went down. Knocked to the floor the same way Saul was knocked to the dirt on that road, because when love hits you that bright, that close, you don't stay standing, you take a seat. And that's exactly what happened to me. Everything around me went silent. It was like I was seeing color for the first time, or I could breathe for the first time. That weight finally left. It was gone. I had a full-blown encounter with love himself on my living room floor with him in my arms. And since then, I've came to so many different truths, my testimonies, right? And I'd like to share a few. Truth number one is Jesus isn't a healer. He is the healer. So since that night, since I started building an actual relationship with Jesus instead of trying to be angry at him at a distance, I have not taken any anxiety or depression medication. It's because I'm no longer seeking healing. I'm seeking the healer. Before that night, Maddox was having tonic-clonic seizures, at least once a month, sometimes maybe more. He has not had one single tonic-clonic seizure since December when I laid hands on him. So his seizures always started off as focal seizures, and they would turn into tonic-clonic seizures. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it looks a lot different. So the focal seizure at first would start off by him losing consciousness, followed by some sort of repetitive movement. And it was the same terrifying pattern every time. The pattern did try to return after that night. Once in January and once in February, both times Jake and I put our hands on him. We looked at it right in the face and told it to get out in the name of Jesus. And both times he came out of it immediately, and he never got any further than that first flicker. It's tried, but it hasn't gotten anywhere, and it hasn't come back to test the water since. Coming to this church and being surrounded by everybody has been such a blessing to me and my family. We have learned more about who we are and who God actually is in these past months than we ever have before. And we know the healer lives in my house. Not just me, but him too. Maddox, you have epilepsy. Why? So something I really do want you to hear, though, is that this isn't just my truth. It's a truth sitting available to every person. Which brings me to my truth number 2 of my testimony. God gave us authority to shake it off. Someone very special to me told me that there's a picture of me on God's refrigerator. And I love that visual even more, and I believe it. He is that close and that proud and that personally invested in me. I want to go back to Paul one more time, because this next part of the story wrecked me when I found it. It's in Acts chapter 28. Paul has just survived a shipwreck. His boat is gone. The storm nearly killed everyone on board, and he washes up on the island of Malta. He's soaked, freezing, completely wiped out. And he doesn't go and sit down to nurse his wounds. He goes and he starts building a fire to keep everybody warm. And as soon as he lays the sticks on the fire, a viper, driven out by the heat, latches onto his hand and won't let go. So I have this idea, it didn't just bite him, it latched, it didn't let go. So the islanders are all around watching the snake hang off his wrists and immediately decide he must be a murderer, that he deserved it. And they stand around in a circle all waiting for him to die. So that's the scene. So Paul is soaked, exhausted. There's a venomous snake hanging off his wrist and a crowd of strangers just watching him, waiting for him to fail or to die. So he doesn't panic and he doesn't perform. He doesn't stop what he's doing for very long. He shakes the snake off into the fire. And Paul's answer wasn't to fight the snake with his own strength. It was to shake it off like it had no claim over him at all. And he went right back to warming his hands by the fire. And then I found this, and even in my notes, I have one of those exploding head emojis. In Luke chapter 10, verse 19, Jesus tells his followers plainly, "Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall hurt you." And Paul, he knew that. And he just shook the snake into the fire. He knew it. He knew the gift that God gave him. And Paul didn't debate with the snake, because he learned that lesson from Genesis, so we don't argue with snakes. And I don't argue with snakes anymore. I shake them off, throw them into the fire, because I know that Jesus has given me the authority and that he believes in me. This isn't a feeling that I talk myself in on good days. It's a posture. It's something I believe the way I believe the sky is blue. It's not something I hope it's true. It's truth I stand on. Paul knew it too, on that beach with the venomous snakes still probably twitching in the fire behind him. That's how I live my life now. I trust what's been placed in me. I have faith in myself and all of you. And I'm going to make absolutely sure that I use what Jesus gave me instead of letting it sit unused. Just because I've been bitten doesn't mean it has the authority to take me down. This past month, I was in the middle of some genuinely frightening pain. Bad enough that my doctor got concerned and ordered testing. The pain kept coming back more intense each day. So one Thursday, Maddox was at baseball practice, and I thought, I'm just going to go to Goreville Church, I'm going to go, because I wasn't feeling well, and I knew that I would feel better if I went. So I could feel it as soon as I pulled into the parking lot and saw it. I started feeling better. And of course, that night we sang House of Miracles, and Jason was preaching about speaking to our own bodies and using the authority Jesus already gave us instead of waiting for permission. And Jason was telling our bodies to start working in a way that I thought they better listen. And then I went to Miss Judy's for prayer, ladies' prayer, which is, like Kristen said, a lot more than that, but I already knew that something was about to move. I knew more relief was coming because being there before, Rachel has prayed a migraine right off of me before. So when she stepped up to lead closing prayer, I already knew something was about to happen. And she told that pain directly that it had to go. Shake the snake into the fire. The pain stopped waking me up in the middle of the night. It stopped bringing me to my knees. It had all but vanished. And then I had to go back in for my test results. And the doctor hesitated to even talk with me because Maddox was sitting in the room. I told her, it's fine, go ahead. And she told me she was concerned enough that she needed to run further testing for cancer. So I guess where that snake got shaken into. Right into the fire. I told her as calmly as I could that I was feeling better, the pain was gone, but because of the results, she still wanted a biopsy, so I agreed. And the results came back, and they were clean, clear, fine, no cancer, and they were left doctors, no explanation. Do you want to come back for a follow-up? No, I'm good. Just another snake into the fire, that's what I say, burning up behind me. So the last truth that I want to share with you is his heart is not my circumstance. What happens to me and my family and the people I love does not get to define who my Father is. My circumstances do not get a vote on God's character. Over these last 7 months, God has revealed himself to me in ways I never expected, and I have always loved to write as long as I can remember, but I've never stuck with it. And honestly, I was writing when I was in a dark place, and it just made that feel bigger and heavier, so I would quit and I wouldn't go back to it. But that's completely changed. Now I sit down with Jesus before I even pick up a pen, and sometimes I have to stop and ask, where did that come from? Did that came, from me? But I'm like, no, it's Christ living in me. That's where it came from my teacher, my friend. I'm just so grateful to stand here with all of you. Like Jason reminded us last week from Revelation, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus. And I realize that verse means my life. Laid out here, all of the scars and all the bad, it's all good news. It means I'm not just telling you what happened to me, I'm telling you the gospel, the actual good news of how I was saved by Jesus Christ, body, mind, and spirit. And I know who I am now, and I know whose I am. So I'd just like to end my testimony today with the latest poem out of one of those nights. It's called His Heart Is Not My Circumstance. Some mornings, the darkness reaches my eyes before the light ever does. It waits for me like a familiar path through quiet woods where the earth is soft with years of fallen leaves and long shadows stretch between towering trees, inviting me to walk where I've walked too many times before. A trail worn smooth by fear, regret, and the quiet habit of believing my failures deserve the final word. But I know who God is. I know He is love. I know He heals. I know His grace. I know He delights in making broken things whole, just as spring coaxes green life from branches that look dead all winter. Healing has always been woven into His heart, not for eternity, but here, now, where trembling minds grow still, wounded hearts beat with hope again, and weary bodies rest beneath the gentle hands of Christ. So I turn toward Jesus, even while my mind keeps looking over its shoulder, like a lost traveler who keeps glancing back at the storm clouds gathering behind her instead of sunrise breaking over the hills ahead. Old pain calls my name. Tomorrow whispers its threats. Yet Christ keeps beckoning me forward into the warmth of His light. The battle is rarely loud. It settles quietly like evening fog rolling over an open field, slowly covering what was once clear. It is fought in the space between an open Bible and a glowing screen, between whispered prayers and thoughts that creep like thorn vines, wrapping around every promise, pulling at every tender place, trying to convince me that darkness is more familiar than grace. Again and again I fight my way back to mercy, like the first bird song at dawn, gentle enough to remind the morning that light has come. Back to the hands still marked by nail scars, forever bearing the cost of my peace. Back to the voice that has never spoken anything but life over me. I ask Him to heal me. Not because I wonder, rather He can, and not because I question whether he desires to, but because I know his will to heal. I know his heart. I know his power. I know the one who opened blind eyes to brilliant morning light, strengthened legs that had forgotten how to stand, silenced crashing waves with a single word, and called the dead out into fresh air beneath an open sky. The same Jesus who walked dusty roads of temptation with sand clinging to his feet now walks beside me. So I pray with expectation even while I wait. I tell him I trust him, and I do. I believe with everything within me that he will make all things right. Yet sometimes I still sit among the ashes, running them through trembling fingers, watching gray dust drift away with every passing breeze, forgetting that resurrection has never begun in places already alive. This flesh still carries the weight of an old inheritance, always bending toward the shadows the way smoke bends tonight, if I let it. But I won't. Not because I have become fearless, but because I know my Father. My life is no longer found with Adam. I have been made alive in a better covenant, where righteousness is not earned, but received in the glory of God as my home. I know the shepherd whose voice echoes across forgotten hillsides. I know the Savior who calls dead back to life. I know the King who clothed my name in righteousness and calls me his own. So when my head hangs low, my eyes fixed on the dust beneath my feet, I will remember that Christ already lifted it at the cross. When fear tells me to look behind, I will set my face toward the empty tomb, where the stone still lies abandoned and the air is sweet with the fragrance of new blossoms and the breath of life itself. When weakness whispers that healing is too far away, I will answer with the faithfulness of God. His promises are not weakened by my waiting. His power is not diminished by what my eyes cannot yet see. Healing belongs to him, and so does my life. When my heart grows weary, I will keep walking toward the light, feeling the warmth of dawn slowly chase the chill from my skin. Watching golden light spill through the trees because dawn has never asked darkness for permission to rise. And one day, every shadow inside me will surrender to the brilliant glory of the sun, just as night always yields to the first fire of morning. Until then, I will keep fighting my way toward the one who has never stopped walking toward me, together in the wilderness. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Please follow and share this message. And for more information, visit srcowboychurch.com.